Malaysians, we spend on average around about 50,000 ringgit on our wedding. That is about 18 months worth of our median salary. In the US, they spend around 8 months worth of their median salary, and in Germany, they spend just 4 months. Here, it's almost 1.5 years. I saw this stat from a viral TikTok by this Indian auntie and the numbers shocked me. It wasn't just shocking, how much money we spent because I kind of knew that. It was more shocking, how much more we spent compared to our peers globally. So I thought, let me actually dig into this and find out where all of this money is going. And I know there is a lot of wedding content out there, but not much of it talk about the real finances and whether it's worth it. So in this video, I'll be talking about wedding costs, how much we can actually get back, the trade-offs that we have, and also whether it's worth it for us to take a loan to get married. Let's get to it. So first, let's talk about the big costs. Food and venue, this is easily around 40 to 50% of our entire wedding budget, no matter what race you are. For Malays, usually there is a kenduri or what they call a bersanding, and usually packages for this would be around 25 to 30,000 ringgit for, I would say, 500 packs. And this is expected to go up in 2026 as well. So usually this is sold as a bundle. They will give you a venue, they will give you the food and some basic decoration as well. I would say that this is pretty normal. So my sister did get married a few years ago and she got a hall somewhere further on the outskirts of KL. It was a really nice place, the food was pretty good, and she spent close to around 30,000 ringgit for 300 people. And then there are Chinese weddings, and usually these go by tables. How much do they charge per table? Each table is 10 people. If you go to the lower end, if you're talking about, cheaper restaurants, it can go around 900 to 1,200 ringgit per table. If you're talking hotels, it can be about 1,008 to 2,005 maybe. And then if you're talking about really nice hotels and really nice Chinese restaurants, it can easily go above 3,000 ringgit per table. This all depends on what menu you choose as well. So let's say there are 10 people per table, you have 30 tables in total, that is around 60 to 70,000 ringgit just on your food and your venue. And these weddings, they tend to be huge, right? We have our own friends, we have our family and all our extended family, of course, and then most of the times parents will also invite their friends as well. And then the pricey ones, which like I said is hotels. This is no matter the race, some people do like to go to hotels to do their wedding. It is nice, I guess, you're at a named place, the food is kind of okay, people can stay there easily, but hotels tend to be the most expensive. In KL, I would say the average rate at a nice hotel is about 3,000 ringgit per table. So that is 300 ringgit per person that is attending your wedding. And again, this is just for food, venue, and very basic decoration. Speaking of decorations, this is what really shocked me. So I was doing some research and I saw some quotations by vendors, wedding planners, and I found out that decorations can go up to 40,000 ringgit. I'm sure it can go way higher than that, but the ones that I saw was 40,000 ringgit. That to me is almost the entire cost of a wedding. A basic setup can be around 3 to 5,000 ringgit. It can be cheap for you to just add on top of what the venue gives you. But once you start adding things like a stage, some fancy lighting, some fresh flowers, things can easily snowball and your bill will start to go up. I even know some hotels that only allow you to have fresh flowers. They don't allow you to have any fake flowers at all, probably because they want to maintain some sort of image, these higher class hotels. So yeah, it can be really, really expensive. And of course, whenever you go to a florist, whenever you go to all these vendors, when they know that you're doing a wedding, most of the times they will increase the price as well. And when you see nice wedding decos on Instagram, on social media, of your friends, even celebrities, it's very easy for us to think, I want something like that. And that's how decoration goes from 55,000 ringgit to 20,000 ringgit, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's 40,000 ringgit. And then there's also gifts. So Malays, Chinese, Indian, even Bumi Putra in Sabah and Sarawak, usually there is a tradition where gifts are given either directly to the bride and groom or to their families. So for Malays, there is this thing called hantaran. I've seen people give even designer handbags, but most of the times across all cultures, it's most of the times gold and cash. So this is an additional cost that you'll have to give on top of your entire wedding ceremony. And then there's the other cost of having a photographer or a videographer. This one, to me, honestly, I find it to be worth it, because if you're gonna have a wedding, if you're gonna invite everyone, you're gonna make it really nice, then you might as well have some really nice photos as well, right? Well, the thing is, I don't know whether they're increasing the prices for weddings as well, but I found out that basic packages for just a photographer for the whole day can be, 3,000 ringgit, 5,000 ringgit. And if you want a photographer and a videographer, it can go up to, 8, 10,000 ringgit. And when they start doing add-ons, like they have a fancy drone, they do same day editing, all of these things can easily rack up. So those are the big categories that most people spend their money on when it comes to the wedding, but there's also a few sort of hidden costs that can slowly creep up to you. And the first of that is the upgrade creep. Maybe first of all, you thought, I'll just go for the basic package, the cheapest thing, but then slowly the venue, the vendor, the hotel, they'll start upselling you, right? Hey, you want a bit nicer food? Do you want to extend it a bit? Do you want to get a DJ? Slowly all of these things can add up. And the thing about weddings is because the number is already so big, because you're already spending 50,000 ringgit on food and venue, then what's another 5,000 ringgit, right? What's another 2,000 ringgit here? All these things, again, they can slowly creep up to you and they will snowball. And then there are family additions. Maybe you planned for 200 people. At the end of the day, your mom said, hey, my relative from this other state is coming. They really want to attend. Let's have another 10 people. Let's have one more table. So all these things, again, it goes beyond your budget. And then there's a whole vendor ecosystem. You gotta get an MC, you gotta get stages, you gotta get a projector, you gotta pay for people's parkings, all these things. It might seem small, but again, when we add this 2,000 ringgit, 3,000 ringgit, all of them can slowly add up. And then finally, there is the multiple events problem. Now, most of us might think, or at least I thought, that you just have one wedding and you're done. But these days, it really does seem that most people tend to have at least 2 weddings. Most of the times, it's one for the groom and one for the bride. But I've also seen people do, a third event where they want to do their nikah or their ROM. They want to celebrate it as well. Christian people might want to do it at a church, even though yes, it is small, but there will be cost to that as well. Okay, so that's the part about how much a wedding costs. I can't say, the exact numbers because this is going to vary from person to person, but what I want to talk about now is it worth it? Let's first talk about the recovery math. How much can you actually get back? And this actually, interestingly enough, differs by your culture and the type of people that you invite, and of course, how much you're actually spending on the wedding. Chinese weddings, I would say, are probably the best when it comes to Malaysian culture because Chinese people like to give an ang pao or they like to give the bride and groom money for attending their wedding. I guess the mindset of Chinese people is that, thank you so much for inviting me. I don't want to burden you, so here's some money to help you cover some of your costs. Typically, I would say people expect to recover around 50 to 70% of their total cost, which sounds really good, right? But you can't plan your whole wedding on the expectation that people are going to give you money back. From what I know, I think friends will give around 100 to 200 ringgit, and then relatives will give you maybe a bit more, 150 to 250, and then close friends and family maybe give you 300 plus, 500 plus. It really depends on them and their affordability. For me, whenever I attend close friends' wedding, I give them maybe between 200 to 300 ringgit, which is quite a lot actually. So yeah, it's not just expensive to have a wedding, it's expensive to attend weddings as well. But like I said, you can't plan your entire wedding budget based on assuming that people will help you cover your costs because it really depends. So you have to assume the worst and you have to assume that every single ringgit that you put into your wedding, you're not going to get it back. You see, the thing is, if you pick out a 5-star hotel where the food and venue alone is going to cost people 300 ringgit per person, and then you have all those other stuff like photographers, decos and all that stuff, it is extremely unlikely for you to cover your costs just because your costs are so high per person. If you do it at a cheaper place, let's say your total cost per person is 100 ringgit, then yeah, your likelihood of recovering it will be a lot higher. For Malays, I think the culture is a bit different, so they don't tend to recover as much as Chinese people. Again, my assumption here is that Malay people, when they invite people to their wedding, it's more of like, I really want you to come and celebrate my wedding, so please come and, I don't expect anything from you other than your presence. So I know a few people who have had their weddings and they told me how much they managed to recover. One friend had it at, I would say, a pretty nice Chinese restaurant and he managed to recover 100% of his costs. That is honestly pretty surprising. Then I had another friend who did it at an Airbnb, pretty laid back, pretty chill, didn't spend that much money. And again, he recovered 100%. Actually, he recovered more than 100%. So he made money on his wedding, which is pretty interesting. But then, we have people like my sister who only recovered around 30 to 40% of their costs. So it really depends on, I would say, how much you spend in total. Like I said, if you're spending a lot of money, it's harder for you to recover. And number two, the type of people that you invite. If you invite, let's say, foreigners, their culture is not really to give you cash. They might give you gifts instead, which, yeah, I guess it's worth something, but it's not money. And again, you can't just invite people assuming that they're going to give you ang pao, right? And you can't just invite people who can give you a lot of money unless you're trying to treat your wedding as a business, then you do you. So what's the trade-off when you decide to have a nice wedding? For most Malaysian couples, I think the two main things that they want to start off with, their two biggest expenses when it comes to the start of their marriage, is number one, the wedding, and number two, a house. Some people stretch for both. They have a nice wedding and they buy a nice house at the same time. But man, it's really tough and you would be really tight financially, especially if you're doing it at the same time. The way to think about it is that 100,000 ringgit on a wedding would be really nice for one night, but 100,000 ringgit on a down payment for a house could be, 20% of a 500,000 ringgit house. That's the difference. I know the way I framed it makes it seem like, the house is obviously the better choice, but it's completely up to each individual. To some people, they might value their wedding a lot. So yeah, they could go ahead and prioritize the wedding and maybe decide that the house will come later on. That's completely fine. As long as you're making responsible financial decisions, you're not getting into debt that you can recover from, then yeah, do whatever you want. And on that note, let me now talk about wedding loans. So, typically, when it comes to wedding loans, I don't think there's any such thing as a wedding loan per se. Typically, these are personal loans because there's no collateral, right? It's not like the bank can take your wedding and auction it off to recover the cost. So personal loans in Malaysia, they generally range from 3 to 5%. That's how they're being marketed. That is a simple flat rate. But once we convert it into an effective interest rate, it will go close to 7 to 9% per year. So 100,000 ringgit wedding, 100,000 ringgit loan at 8% effective interest rate would be 2,000 ringgit per month in repayments for quite a long time. Now, I said earlier that people can do whatever they want as long as they're being responsible. They can choose a wedding, a house to save that money, go on a nice honeymoon, whatever it is. But here's where I'm going to draw the line. I don't think anyone should be taking a loan to get married. Or, okay, not to get married, but to have a nice wedding. I really don't think it's a smart decision for you to start a marriage with someone else with a big debt already hanging over your head. It could be a house, and yes, that would be a big debt as well. But then at least you have a house, right? And I know that this is a once in a lifetime thing. It's gonna be a really big moment to celebrate your big occasion, but you still have to be smart about your decisions. You have a few options other than taking loans. One is if you don't have the money for it, you can always save up first, right? Take your time. You don't have to do your big celebration just yet. The second option is for you to just do a smaller wedding. It's completely fine, right? I mean, honestly, ask yourself this, what's the most important thing? To me, it's about getting married, right? It's not really about having a wedding. Personally, I do lean towards the side of keeping it more modest, keeping it more affordable. On one hand, I understand, it is a once in a lifetime thing. You want to make it special. You want everyone to be there and you want everyone to be happy. You want it to be memorable. But on the other hand, it is a lot of money and you don't want to get into debt for sure. But even if you have the cash ready, there are many things you can do with that cash to kickstart your marriage. But the most important thing is for you guys to have the number in mind. How much are you really willing to spend? And then make sure that it's a bit under that because like I said, all of these hidden costs can slowly creep up and usually it would go above your budget. Know what your wedding is going to cost you, know what you're giving up, and then make the decision for yourself. Honestly, when I say, spend modestly on your wedding, modest differs based on the person, right? Someone with a very high income, with a very high net worth, modest to them could be 200,000 ringgit, and that's completely fine, right? Again, it's all about your affordability level. You have to know what you can afford and then just budget based on that. So if you guys recently got married or you're currently doing research on your wedding, then let me know in the comments below what surprised you the most and how much did you actually spend on your wedding. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching it till the end. Give me a huge thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.